Hello everyone! In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these granny squares using simple instructions, and I'm going to make the single color one, but there will be instructions on how to make the three color one or multicolor one, any color combination you want. You can basically use any hook size, any yarn weight for these granny squares. I'll show you what I have used now. So I have a 3mm hook because it fits my yarn weight, but you can basically use any hook size, and my yarn is size 2 sports weight yarn, and I have a pair of scissors. You can start this with a magic circle or with a slip knot, and in today's video I'm going to start with a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 4. If you are unfamiliar with basic crochet stitches, I suggest going back and seeing how to chain and learning these. So here I chained 4, and I am basically going to slip stitch into the first stitch I have made, the first chain I have made. And this will create a little loop in between my 4 chains. Here you can see it. I am going to work my stitches into this loop for this round. So I have chained 3 again, and this counts as a double crochet. So I'm making 2 more double crochets into the loop I have just shown you. And this makes a cluster. I will always mention these as clusters in this video. And I have chained 2. This creates a corner. And you can see the loop, my cluster, and 2 chains. And now I'm making another cluster, which is 3 double crochets. So one cluster consists of 3 double crochets, whether the first DC is 3 chains or not. So I made the other cluster, and now I'm going to chain 2 again to create the other corner and repeat the same steps to make another cluster with 2 chains at the end, and then another cluster with 2 chains at the end. So my first round has 4 clusters with 2 chains in between each of them. Here I'm making the last cluster, so 3 double crochets, and then I'm going to make 2 more chains to finish off the round, and I am going to connect this with a slip stitch onto the 3rd chain of the first stitch I have made. So this counts as a stitch, so I'm going to slip stitch over here. So I have created my first round. For the second round, I'm going to chain 3 again here, and then I'll start working on the next chain space. So here I'm chaining 3. I think I've actually chained 4 in this video, but it's normally chain 3. And I am making another cluster here, no chains in between these. So 3 double crochets. And then I'm going to chain 2 because it's going to be a corner stitch again. I am making the 3rd double crochet, and I am chaining 2, and then I'll make another cluster in the same chain space to turn the corner, basically. And I don't have any chains in between the corner stitches, so I'm going to jump onto the next chain space and make a cluster, chain 2, make another cluster. I'll meet you when I'm done. And yeah, I have 2 corner stitches now. I'm going to jump onto the next chain space, and I finished it. It's the same steps repeated. The next one is a little bit different because we have the last double crochet of the second cluster of the corner stitch. So here I'm making a cluster, chaining 2. Instead of doing a cluster, I'm just going to make 2 double crochets and connect to the first stitch with a slip stitch, because the first 3 chains counts as a double crochet here. So I have actually made it in the beginning of the round instead of making it the end of the round. And it is finished when I connect it with a slip stitch. Now I am going to chain 3 I actually chained 4 here, but don't mind me. And I am going to double crochet twice in this chain space to make a cluster. This is the cluster in between 2 corner stitches, so it's going to be different than the previous round. I am jumping onto the next chain space and making 1 cluster, chaining 2, making another cluster. Don't forget that each cluster consists of 3 double crochets. And my next step is to work into the next chain space, which is not a corner. So it's just going to have 1 cluster, but no chains in between them. And then I jump into the next chain spaces and fill them with either normal clusters, so 3 double crochets, or corner stitches, which are 3 double crochets, 2 chains, and 3 double crochets. And then I connect around again when I'm finished. So for granny squares, you can leave them any size you want, but here I'm going to continue working again. It is the same principle as the second row, so I'm going to chain 3. And then I jump into the next chain space and make a cluster here. So the first chain 3 I made counts as a stitch, and it is actually a part of the last cluster. So I'm just going to make 2 double crochets for the last cluster and connect. So I actually skipped the steps in between, but I basically fill in the chain spaces as I explained previously. And then now I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain at the beginning. So this finishes the granny square. You can continue to add rows as I explained previously, or finish off where you want by chaining 1 and cutting off your yarn. To make a multicolored granny square, you need to cut off your yarn after each round and connect the next color into any chain space and continue the same way. So you have learned how to make a granny square. Thank you for watching.